Alrighty, so a full slate of MLS action is finally back after we gone almost 3 weeks without that because of the June international break. And I'm actually going to preview all 14 of these games with 10 of them happening on Saturday and 4 happening on Sunday. And that there really isn't any time for me to kind of split the preview. And usually I do the preview on Saturday between the matinee game and in the night game. But as I said, because there's really no gap of time in this week's action in terms of the Saturday action between the matinee game and the night game, that's why I'm going to just do the full preview and basically look at all 14 games that's going to happen, which means that this video will be a little bit longer, but I'm going to try my best to make it a little bit short, because one thing I have started to see with some of my preview is that it is starting to get long, and that was one of the things I did kind of promise this season, which is I'm trying to cut down the preview. Hope that maybe that can improve the viewership of these videos, since these videos usually have the lowest viewership out of my channel. But let us actually begin with the first game, which is the Seattle Sounders versus LAFC. And, you know, normally we don't start off the match week with an absolute bang, but that's what we got in this one. As, you know, anytime when Seattle play against LAFC, you know it's going to be a marquee matchup. And you also know that this is going to be on national television, which exactly is the case, as this game is going to be on ABC. It's going to start 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 12:08 p.m. local time. Seattle have a 6-1-6 record, while LAFC have a 9-2-3 record. In terms of the all-time meeting, LAFC does have a slight edge, 6-2-5 over the Sounders. Last 5 head-to-head, the last time both of these teams played against each other was last year, which LAFC won 3-0 against Seattle. But then the Sounders won 2-0 against LAFC. Then it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams. Then the Sounders win 3-1 against LAFC before LAFC win 3-1 against the Seattle Sounders. And I believe this matchup was in the playoffs back in 2019. Actually, no, that matchup wasn't the matchup in 2019. That was actually the matchup in the 2020 playoffs when both of these teams, of course, met in the first round. I mean, in 2019, they met it in the Western Conference Final, but I also know that in 2020, they met in the first round. But, yeah, anytime, whenever both of these teams face off against each other, you know it's going to be a good game, though. I would say that coming into this game, maybe the Sounders does have the slight edge, because, you know, they have definitely ride the wave of the second half resurgence that they're going through, while LAFC have kind of looked a little vulnerable at time in these last couple of games. I mean, they still lead the Supporters' Shield standings, and even though they're not at their best, they're still winning games, which, you know, as the old saying goes, that's what champions do. But they definitely have kind of come back down to earth a little bit, but at least the resort hasn't, for the most part, hasn't shown, though it's going to be a tough kind of match in this one, going to Seattle, a place that not many teams has been able to get all 3 points. But if you're LAFC, at least one good thing that they have in this game, and one good silver lining, is that Raul Ruidiaz will not be playing in this game for the Sounders. It turns out when he got subbed off in that game against the Whitecaps, wasn't because of the fact that they were trying to preserve him, and especially with him just playing a couple of days in the game between Peru and Australia, and that, you know, it was kind of surprising he was thrust right into the starting 11 for the Sounders straight away after a couple days representing his country. But it's more because of the fact that he had some hamstring tightness, so he's going to be out for maybe a couple of games, and this will be one of them. Now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Galaxy versus the Portland Timbers. Now, this game will start right after, after when this one is over, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 2:08 p.m. local time, and the ESPN network will also carry this one, but this time, unlike this one is on ABC, this one is going to be on ESPN. All-time meeting, it's actually very close between both of these teams, 14, 6, and 13. And by the way, anytime it feels like whenever this matchup is happening, it has to be on national television. Like, and it's kind of weird, because I know there is kind of a rivalry between the Galaxy and the Timbers, but, you know, it's not one of those kind of matchup where you would think that it always has to be on national television, and it just seems like that is the case, because earlier this season, when both of these teams play against each other, that was also on national television. But as I mentioned, the all-time meeting is very close between both of these teams, but when you look at the last 5 head-to-head meeting, it was the Timbers losing 3-1 to the Galaxy at home before the Galaxy winning 2-1 against the Timbers. Then the Galaxy won 4-1 against the Timbers before the Timbers did win 3-0 against the Galaxy, and then the Timbers won 5-2 against the LA Galaxy. So at least when you look at the head-to-head meeting, the Galaxy have definitely got the Timbers number in the last couple of matchups, and judging by the fact that the Timbers have really struggled this season, you could make a case that the Galaxy are going to be favorites coming into this game. And again, the Galaxy in these last couple of games, they're starting to kind of rebound a little bit after we thought that they were going through a very predictable stretch where they started to fall apart and drop down the standings. But it seems like they kind of ride the ship a little bit, though. Let's see if they can continue that, as they're going to be playing against a struggling Portland Timbers side that we think that they're desperate in terms of getting a victory here. I mean, this is not the season that a lot of Timbers fan in Savarese are hoping to endure once again like they did last season. And, you know, I jokingly talk about how they desperately need to play the Seattle Sounders soon, so if they can win it, they can start their own second half resurgence. But, you know, again, that I don't think is going to happen until July, though that is, of course, is going to come around the corner. And again, you know, for the Timbers, while I jokingly said that is the case, they'll be definitely happy if they can win some game now and don't have to wait till that big Cascadia Derby matchup to hopefully get a win in that one and propel a comeback and just kind of start to dig themselves out of the deep hole that they put themselves in the beginning of the season. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is the New York Red Bulls versus Toronto FC. So for the Red Bulls in these last couple of games, yeah, things have not gone so well for them. I mean, I talked about how they start off with a very weird kind of a season where they tend to always win on the road, but they can't win at home. Well, at least in these last two games, it seems like that trend is reversed, where now at least they can kind of win at home, getting that first home win against the DC United, but then they also just come off of a loss against Charlotte FC. Now they're playing against a TFC side that did end their winless run against Chicago in that wooden spoon derby in the Eastern Conference, but their record is still 4-3-7, and this game will start at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. The Red Bulls have a 19-9-11 record all-time against Toronto FC, and the last 5 head-to-head matchup, both of these teams, of course, met each other earlier this season, and if you're a TFC fan, it was one to forget because they got absolutely shellacked by the Red Bulls in that one. 4-1 was the final score. That was the game that Lewis Morgan scored a hat-trick for the Red Bulls. Then it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams, a 2-0 win that the Red Bulls had against Toronto, and then a 2-1 win at home against TFC, and then it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams. So safe to say, when you look at the last 5 head-to-head matchup, the host does have the upper edge, and that, you know, I'm assuming they're going to do it again, because again, this TFC side, you know, yes, they did win against Chicago, but again, you know, it's a low bar if you're able to end your winless run against a team that is also worse than you and are currently dead last in the Eastern Conference, and now playing a team that, again, trying to get themselves back on track, trying to get themselves a second win of the season. You know, it's going to be an uphill battle for TFC in this game against the New York Red Bulls. Now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Columbus Crew versus Charlotte FC. So, if there is one match that Charlotte FC has a big opportunity to get their first win on the road in franchise history, this is the matchup to do so, because Columbus this season has really struggled both home and away. The record is 4-4-5, while Charlotte have a 6-1-8 record. And even though Columbus did win their last road game against Atlanta United, it seems like that's kind of like the only opponent that they've been able to win on the road, and that they've been pretty much losing to everybody on the road or drawn against everybody on the road. Meanwhile, at home, they've also been very inconsistent. There's times where they can get victory at home, and then there are also times that they drop points or even lose a game. But this is, of course, the first ever meeting between both of these teams, as this game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. And this is also the first game for Christian Lizon to really get to see his team play on the road. And yeah, we'll see whether or not if he can propel his team to get a road victory, because again, you know, this team is clearly still under a coaching boost by their new interim head coach. And like I said, if there is a better opportunity for them to get their first road win, this is the opportunity to do so, to make some history. But we'll see if Columbus can avoid that feat in this one. Now, moving on, in terms of the next match, we got Montreal versus Austin FC. And speaking of first ever meeting, this is also a first ever meeting between both of these teams, as both of these teams have never played against each other again. Anytime when an Eastern Conference team faces against Los Verdes, it's usually a first ever meeting, because last season, you only face against your Eastern Conference foe twice, and there's a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference that never got a chance to face against Austin FC. Now, Austin does have a 7-3-4 record, while Montreal has a 7-2-5 record, and Austin is started to kind of, unfortunately, get into the category where we thought who they were, which is a team that kind of got help with their record because they were on a very easy schedule, and now they're going through this really murderous 10-game stretch where they have only won once so far during the middle part of this 10-game stretch that I mentioned, how it is very brutal for them. And again, it's not going to be easy when they're playing against a Montreal side that is looking to trying to get another win. I believe they got a win in the last game to get themselves back in the winning category. Yeah, they of course got that 4-3 win against FC Cincinnati. And no, I don't think that's going to be the, well, there could be a chance that could be the scoreline too, because both of these teams are very good on the attacking front, and that on the defensive front, there could be sometimes question mark between both of these teams. So who knows? Maybe this could be another high scoring affair between both of these teams. But one thing for sure, if it is going to be the case, expect to be a very entertaining matchup between both of these teams. Now, moving on, in terms of the next match, we got Orlando versus the Houston Dynamo. So Orlando has a 6-4-5 record, while the Dynamo has a 5-3-6 record. This game will also start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. In fact, this is one of 4 games that's going to be happening and the third one that I'm talking about that starts at that typical time of 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. But the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. Orlando has a 6-4-5 record and are fresh off a 1-1 draw against New England in the middle of the week, while the Dynamo have a 5-3-6 record. All-time meeting between both of these teams. Houston actually has been able to do well against Orlando, having a 2-2-1 record against them. And you look at the last 5 head-to-head matchup, it was the Dynamo winning 2-1 against Orlando City before it was a 0-0 draw between both of these teams. The Dynamo did get a 4-0 win against Orlando. Then it was a 0-0 draw between both of these teams, and the only win that Orlando got was actually the first ever meeting between both of these teams where they were able to win 1-0 on the road against the Houston Dynamo. And yeah, for Orlando, I guess maybe they're due for a win, because they got a draw in the last game, and if we go with the Orlando City theorem, where they have been a very inconsistent win-loss draw kind of pattern, you would assume that this could be a win, especially against the Dynamo side that, while they have definitely still continue a very strong start to the season. I mean, when you look in the standing, it doesn't seem like it, but consider this was supposed to be a team that is aimed to maybe finish dead last in the Western Conference. They're doing a good job in terms of staying in touching distance of that last couple of playoff spot. But like I said, this is a road game for them, and anytime when the Dynamo will go on the road, usually they are going to lose the game. Although this season they've already picked up 2 road wins, and that I think they've already got more road wins than they had compared to the whole of last season, where I don't think last season they even got a road win, and also the one previous during the COVID era. But yeah, this is going to be a tough game for them, facing against an Orlando side that, again, if we follow the inconsistent pattern, you would say that this should be a win for this team. Now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Philadelphia Union versus FC Cincinnati, and I'm actually interested to see how this match will play out, because a lot of FC Cincinnati, the kind of philosophy ever since they've been under Chris Albright and also under Pat Nolan, come from the Philadelphia Union. In fact, this is the first time that Pat Nolan is going to be facing against his former employee in Jim Curtin. So this is kind of almost like a Chris Albright and also Pat Nolan kind of derby in some sense. But this game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, as I mentioned, as one of the 4 games that kick off at that time, and the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. The Union have a 6-7-1 record. They're kind of becoming like Nashville of last season, where they have some wins this season, but they also have drawn a lot of games, but they also haven't lost a lot of them. Only one loss so far, which is by far the fewest out of anybody so far this season. Well, Cincinnati has a 6-1-7 record, and they have definitely cooled off in these last couple of games. They were in an incredible run where I think they went on a 4-game winning streak to get themselves all the way above the red line, and I'm not sure if they're exactly still above the red line right now. I think they are, but they're barely just hanging on in terms of it. But in terms of the all-time meeting, the Union has pretty much dominated this series, 5-1-0 over FC Cincinnati. And you look at the last 5 head-to-head matchup, it was the Union winning 2-0 against Cincinnati, a 2-1 win on the road against Cincinnati, a 3-0 win at home against Cincinnati, a 0-0 draw between both of these teams, and then the Union was able to win 2-0 against FC Cincinnati. But, you know, this is a different Cincinnati team that the Union is going to face, especially against a Pat Nolan team. So I would expect FC Cincinnati would put a fight in this game, especially with the way that Pat Nolan know how the Union played with him being under Jim Curtin for a bit before he took the Cincinnati job. Yeah, I won't be surprised. There could be an upset in this one, even though if this game is taking place at Subaru Park. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Chicago Fire versus DC United, and this game is kind of sad because these are two teams that are not only the teams that have been in, well, one team has been in the league since the inception, and then the other was the first expansion team in MLS, but both of these teams are kind of historic club where they have found a lot of good success in the early days of MLS, and nowadays, yeah, not so much. In fact, this is pretty much the wooden spoon derby of the Eastern Conference for this week, as both of these teams are in the bottom 2 standing, Chicago being in 14th position and DC being in 13th. Chicago has a 2-5-7 record, while DC have a 4-2-7 record, as this game will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. And also, it's safe to say that, you know, ever since Chad Ashton has took over from Hernan Losada, and you know how I talk about that new coaching boost that DC has received, yeah, it started to kind of go away a little bit, and that's why they're dropping down the standings. But this game was also interesting, is that it's going to be on Twitter. Yeah, this is really the first time I think I've seen a game on Twitter that is kind of happening during the busy part of the evening action, because usually with Twitter games, you would say that on Saturday it starts like 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is like something 12:50, 1:50, 2:50, or 50 p.m. local time. But here, it's right in the midst of a busy Saturday night action. And at least in one thing I will say, that these last couple of Twitter stream has been kind of in a very interesting time. I mean, the last time I saw a Twitter stream was between Nashville and the San Jose Earthquakes, and that one was also a night game. And I know next week we also will have a Twitter stream that is going to be happening in the Cali Classico, and that one will be a late 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. But going back to this game, you know, both of these teams have played against each other a lot of time, because, you know, both of these teams, although no one of them has won in the league when the league was founded, they've been there since 1998, and that, again, both of these teams has some very good early battles in the early days of MLS, and that in terms of the all-time record, it's shown that it's been very close, 27, 21, and 26, slightly in favor of the Fire. But you look at the last 5 head-to-head matchup, it was the Fire winning 2-0 against DC, before DC winning 3-0 against Chicago. There was a 2-2 draw between both of these teams, and DC winning 1-0 against the Fire, and then the Fire winning 2-1 against DC. And I believe that 2-0 loss that Chicago won against DC, wasn't that the game that basically got Hernan Losada Fire? I might be completely mistaken there, but yeah, that was not a great result for DC United, and now they're going to have to go on the road to try to maybe get some revenge against a Chicago team that is still now on the longest active winless run, where I think that their winless run has now reached double digit at 10 games. I mean, it has just been a complete free fall for Israel Henriksen team, and that the only thing I will say that at least things maybe can turn around is the fact that they do play against a weaker Eastern Conference team, and it seems like their attack is starting to find some life, because in the last game against Toronto, they actually have scored more goals in that game than they have done for most part of that spell, where they just could not be able to find the ball in the back of the net. But we'll see whether that can continue in this game against DC United. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 6 games that's going to be happening in terms of match week number, oh god, I forgot what match week this is. It's been a while since we have a full slate of MLS action. I think it's match week number 15. I might be wrong, but whatever it is, let's take a look at the last 6 games of this match week. So moving on in terms of the next match is FC Dallas versus the Vancouver Whitecaps, which this game will start at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:11 p.m. local time, so a bit of a late one down in Dallas, but you know, it makes sense, the fact that they have a late kickoff, considering you do not want to play soccer in Texas in the summer during even in the early evening, and that in this game, at least it's going to be starting being still in the daytime, but by the time when we get to halftime, the sun would already been setting. But coming into this game, Dallas have a 7-4-3 record, while Vancouver have a 5-2-8 record, fresh off of that 4-0 loss against the Seattle Sounders. Dallas does have the edge in terms of the all-time meeting, 11-7-8, and in terms of the last 5 head-to-head matchup, both of these teams, of course, face off against each other earlier this season, and it was the Whitecaps winning 2-1 against FC Dallas, that come from behind victory too, because that was a game where it looked like Dallas was going to get an easy victory, and then the game just kind of took a U-turn, and Vancouver was able to score 2 goals in the last 15 minutes to get the 2-1 victory. But before that, it was a 1-0 win against FC Dallas before both teams drew 2-2 against each other, and they did the same thing in the other matchup, and then the Whitecaps winning 2-1 against FC Dallas. So the Whitecaps, they definitely have Dallas number, at least in these last couple of games, though. Again, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond after just such a lifeless performance against the Seattle Sounders. And it kind of also doesn't help the fact that when you follow a lifeless kind of performance and you're looking to try to bounce back, you're about to play against FC Dallas, which for most part of this season, they've been very good at home. I think they've only lost once so far this season, and that was the last home game when they lost to Minnesota. But you know that Dallas would want to get themselves back into winning form at home, and this could be a good opportunity to do so. Now, moving on in the next match, we got RSL versus the San Jose Earthquakes, which will start 30 minutes after the Dallas versus Vancouver game. In fact, this is the last game that's going to be happening in terms of the busy Saturday night action, as this game will start at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. RSL have a 7-4-4 record, while the Quakes have a 3-6-6 record. And in terms of the all-time meeting, the Quakes does lead the all-time meeting slightly with a 15-11-12 record against RSL. And in fact, in the last 5 head-to-head matchup, the Quakes have done well against RSL. You know, the last time both of these teams play at Rio Tinto Stadium, the Quakes were able to win 4-3. Though in the prior meeting, RSL was able to win 4-3. So in some way, the Quakes kind of returned the favorite in one of the matchup and in the last matchup between both of these teams. But before that, the Quakes also got a win on the road at Rio Tinto Stadium, getting a 2-1 win against RSL before they won 2-0 at home against RSL, and then winning 5-2 against RSL back in that MLS is Back tournament round of 16 matchup. So yeah, for the last five times that both of these team meet, the Quakes have been able to get victory, and really in these last couple of games when the Quakes play against RSL at Rio Tinto Stadium, they have been able to get a result, and this is despite the fact that Rio Tinto Stadium this season has started to become the fortress that RSL has always known the Riot to be. But we'll see whether or not if that is going to continue, and especially for the Quakes, you know, in the last game they got a good result against Nashville on the road, a 0-0 draw, and even though I know that doesn't sound like a good result, getting like a 0-0 draw on the road, but at least it's an improvement with the way that the defense played much better in that game, and we'll see whether that's going to continue in this one. But hope that this time the attack can get going, unlike what we saw in the last game. But now moving on in terms of the next match, and now getting into the Sunday action, and the first of 4 Sunday action comes in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, as Atlanta United is going to be playing against Inter Miami in this one. This game will start at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 3:08 p.m. local time. Again, this is another matchup that you know that it's going to be on national television, because there's just something about this matchup where I think MLS is trying to create a little Southern derby kind of rivalry vibe with Atlanta and Inter Miami, even though, you know, if you ask any Atlanta fans, I don't think any of them have beef toward Inter Miami, and the same goes with Inter Miami fans. I don't think they have any beef toward Atlanta United. And it kind of helped the fact that Miami actually does lead the series with a 3-3-2 record. And by the way, this game will start at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 3:08 p.m. local time. And so this game is actually going to be on ESPN2. There hasn't been a lot of game that's been on ESPN2, and this is one of the rare one to do so. But the last 5 head-to-head meeting, the last time both of these teams played against each other was earlier this season, which Miami was able to win 2-1. But then Atlanta, of course, returned the favor by winning 2-1 against Miami. Then it was a 1-0 win that Atlanta United has against Inter Miami. Before it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams, and then another 1-1 draw between both of these teams. So, yeah, this should be an interesting matchup, and now I expect this to also be a very close matchup. Maybe it could be a matchup where there might not be a lot of scoring because, you know, both of these teams haven't known for their scoring this season. But also, I think you could maybe say that this might be one of the rare time I say Inter Miami is actually a slight favorite on the road, consider they've been in a very good form so far. For they've played relatively well this season, especially been on a very good form ever since they start winless this season. And Atlanta United, I mean, I mentioned before, they're the most cursed team this season with so many injury that they're dealing with right now, and that we'll see whether or not if they, with even the amount of injury that they had, they can maybe salvage a point in this one, or even get all 3 points against some revenge against Inter Miami. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is the New England Revolution versus Minnesota. So this originally was supposed to be the last game of the match week, and originally this was going to happen at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, which I think it's kind of good, the fact that this game got moved up, because I'm pretty sure no one want to see this game as the last game of the match week. I mean, there's no offense in terms of watching the Revs play against Minnesota, but the fact that, you know, this is the last match of the week, when, you know, usually the last match of the week is usually a national televised game, and kind of a game that is like a dessert and just kind of cap off a wonderful full week in terms of a match week. This is definitely not one that will help that cause. But this game as I said, will be actually now pushed for up to being a late afternoon game, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 5:08 p.m. local time. New England has a perfect 5-5-5 record. Well, it's not a perfect record, but in terms of numeral-wise, you know, it's definitely perfect with the way that they got the exact same amount of wins, draw, and loss this season. While the Loons have a 5-3-6 record, and in terms of the all-time meeting, both of these teams have barely met each other. In fact, this is only the third meeting between both of these teams, with both of these teams having a win apiece. And yeah, this is kind of the first time I get to see the Loons play after coming out of the break. I did mention in the review, I was kind of glad that we are now heading to a break, and that I can see this Minnesota team kind of go through a break without just have to keep pulling my hair every single time watching this team, because of either them being very flat going forward on the attack, or missing a bunch of chances left and right. Now, the good news I will say about Minnesota is that during the break, they did play a friendly against Paderborn, and even though I wasn't able to watch the friendly because it wasn't actually on ESPN Plus and I couldn't find a stream to that, they did win 4-3 in that game against Paderborn. And if that game maybe is something that tells me that maybe they might have found their attacking game form, because, you know, it's been a while since this team have scored 4 goals in a single game. So yeah, maybe the attack will do well in this one, and in some way they're going to have to do well, because they're playing against a Revs team that I'm pretty sure this Revs team will look to try to get themselves all 3 points in this one, after getting a relatively disappointing 1-1 draw against Orlando City, and dropping points at home in terms of their quest to try to get themselves above the red line after a slow start. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is NYCFC versus the Colorado Rapids, which will also start at the same time as this one, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 5:08 p.m. local time. NYCFC have an 8-2-3 record, while the Rapids have a 5-3-6 record. All-time meeting, NYCFC does have a 3-2-0 record against the Rapids, which means that NYCFC have never lost against the Rapids. They pretty much dominate this series. And in terms of the last 5 head-to-head matchup, NYCFC, of course, won 2-1 on the road against Colorado, before it was a 4-0 win against the Rapids the last time both of these teams play. And I believe this game is going to be at Yankee Stadium, if I'm not mistaken. I might be incorrect. It could be at City Field. I mean, nowadays, it's almost like a guess to see where exactly NYCFC is playing, because they're basically playing everywhere right now in the New York area. But then it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams before NYCFC absolutely throttled the Colorado Rapids by winning 5-1 in one of the matchup. And then it was a 0-0 draw between both of these teams. And this is also the first ever game for NYCFC without Ronnie Delia. And like I said, I know it's tough for them to lose Ronnie Delia in the middle of the season, but I think they should still be fine. I mean, they should be able to do well in the rest of the season, especially with the way that when you look at the talent on that team, that is a team that is very well rounded, and is a team that, there could be a case that they could become the first repeat champion, since we saw the Galaxy did it back in 2011. I mean, I know it is hard to repeat in MLS, but there could be a case that they could do so if they can continue this strong season, and especially playing against a Rapids team that have really struggled this season on the road. This is a good opportunity for them to get all 3 points again. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, and the final match of this week is Nashville versus Sporting KC, which this game will start at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 5:25 p.m. local time. So yeah, even for the Sunday action, I'm going to have a lot of games on my plate in terms of keeping track of. But in terms of the all-time meeting, Nashville and Sporting KC both have a win apiece between both of these teams. Oh, I forgot to mention that this game is going to be taking place on FS1. But the last two head-to-head meeting, and in terms of the all-time meeting, Nashville, of course, won 2-1 on the road before Sporting KC did win 2-1 at home against Nashville. And that's the first time that both of these teams are going to be playing in Nashville, and that again, what I'm going to be very interested coming into this game is to see how the turf condition is going to be at Geodis Park, because that's one thing that I noted when I did the review of that game between Nashville SC and the San Jose Earthquakes, where the turf was really bad, and that there's got to be some big question mark you got to raise of how in the world does a stadium that just opened and only played a couple of games, and now the turf look like it has already been through a lot. So we'll see if it does get better. Most likely it's probably not, because in order to make the turf much better, they probably have to lay the turf, and that of course will take time. But hopefully the grounds crew will do their best in terms of trying to fixing it up, because like I said, it is bizarre the fact that a team can build a beautiful new stadium, and then literally just a couple of games later that turf already turns bad. But in terms of the on-field product in this one, I mean, for Nashville, you would say that they definitely want to bounce back after just such a disappointing result against the Quakes. And again, this is a Nashville team that they're starting to suffer the same problem that they had last season, where while they do well on the road, they don't do well at home, and they drop way too many points at home. And so far this season, they need to pick it up in terms of getting 3 points at home, and they have a good opportunity to do so, because they're playing against a Sporting KC side that we know that they're going through a very tough stretch in league play, and that it feels like they're more focused right now in terms of the U.S. Open Cup than rather in league play, and especially with them getting a U.S. Open Cup game on Wednesday. I wouldn't be surprised Peter Vermees would just decide to not even put his starter in this game, because like I said, this team feels like they're solely focused on the U.S. Open Cup, knowing that league play is pretty much all done, and that they're probably not going to make the playoffs. So yeah, this is a game for Nashville to lose, and that they need to take advantage if they do face against a weaker Sporting KC side. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these games that's going to be happening. And again, I don't remember what match week it is. I'll just take a look, and you guys will find out when I put the title of this video. But let me know in the comments below in terms of all these games for this match week, and make sure you leave your prediction below in the comments section for all 14 of these games. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.